Oh, I got the
He's
chair.
talking to me and he goes.
Well, hang it out. Nobody's, it's not too late.
All
All right. And so when are we doing the budget priorities? Is that going to be during business or discussion?
What did you say, Bo? Six?
I think,
6D as in dog.
oh, okay.
It'll be our last business item. I was thinking we'd put it last so that we could let Julie get off.
So we can,
Let people on Zoom hop off if, yeah, right.
I mean, I can squeeze really hard. I think we practice. Get trouble with buttoning up shirts, trouble with all this. So, when my shaver, maybe not this year.
oh, did you get your own?
No, I just have, maybe it's old age for that trouble doing things with my fingers and get scared. So the first X-ray, did an MRI in the shoulder, nothing there. Then my neck, and then we did my head. And they said, there's nothing there that's causing the problem with your hand. It's your sinuses are full of infection.
Oh.
And I didn't have.
Hi, Lisa.
How are you?
I didn't have any of the symptoms. I don't know how I would have ever found it if I hadn't accidentally went in and had this MRI or something else.
Did your fingers resolve after?
No, they're still.
They're just talking about.
Oh, we're talking about getting old earlier. We were talking about our hair falling and stuff. You need a cup?
It's just, it happens, right? Like,
A four, I get a hold of a four.
I play guitar, so that's the help.
Because it strengthens your fingers.
typing does not help.
But I
think
I
I'm
have
gonna get
plenty of
carpal
grip.
tunnel.
I milk cows on my life.
Oh,
So I got strong grip.
But
And
it's,
so the doctor will say, oh, I squeeze my fingers. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. He said.
so it's just,
So it's just the fingers.
well, what I'm hearing is you're gonna be taking guitar lessons.
Oh,
guitar
no.
lessons.
No way. My wife is playing ukulele. She's in that little ukulele band.
oh, that's so.
I think she's probably the worst player in the band.
If it's on a ukulele, it never sounds bad.
You,
You always want to be the worst player in the band. You never want to be the best player in the band.
well, I would be, I would try to make it.
Hello.
How you doing? How you been?
I've been all right. I've been all right. I've been keeping fairly busy.
Is she
And-
keeping busy?
She's keeping me pretty busy. Yeah, this place keeps us both pretty busy.
Okay.
And then my home stuff's just been busy and, all good, but just kind of like, it's crazy, like the holidays are here.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, it's kind of just all going by faster than I can handle, but I'm good.
Well, am I supposed to sell that thing out? But,
Yeah, hand that to Brandy. She's gonna, she's gonna kind of direct that part of it. I think you give them a 1, 2, or 3, depending on. Yeah. Stacy and Josh, right?
yeah.
Oh, Steve, Josh is your son. I kept confusing that before, and you guys look like exactly alike, which doesn't help at all. So, okay, I got it now. Cool. I just need that for the record. If you would repeat that, if you're making public comment, that would be great. And your address. Yeah, cool. Thanks, guys.
Got my assignment done. I'll tell you this.
Well, it's an assignment for all of us from the lot.
Yeah, but this is so complicated.
I know. I think they should let me just spend money where I think
I
it should be
think so.
spent. No one will let me do it, man.
If they don't just let you do it all.
I know. Nah, you wouldn't like that. I'd end up with like a big parking spot out there, big sign. Oh, no.
I just like to look at the situation, look at what's going on, and using the common sense, and just make a decision on the spot rather than try to pre-guess every outcome.
Yeah, those are big shoes to fill, Mike. Those are big shoes.
Big shoes.
Big shoes to fill.
Shoes.
Yours.
I'm showing 6:31. I have Commissioner Esch on Zoom.
Hi,
Hello, Zoom. Can everyone hear me okay out there?
yes. Joe's there too.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Bo, it's Julie. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, good.
Look at Don.
And Commissioner Blasey is not able to make it tonight. Commissioner Esch is on Zoom. All right. Do we have any additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda?
I do have an addition of business item 6D, which will be consideration of budget priorities from Planning Commission.
Ooh. Budget.
D is in Don. D is in Don.
Yeah. I do.
Do we have a motion? to
Where's
accept
that?
the agenda? Second. All in favor? Aye.
Hi.
Ann, can we hear you? I don't think we can hear you.
Oh, let's see here.
Okay, that's better.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, aye.
Thank you. Motion carried. All right, consent agenda. Does anyone have any questions or corrections from last month's meeting notes? I do not.
I move we accept the minutes from 9/10/24.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried.
Aye.
Public input?
Do we have public input from the audience?
So go up to this podium and then you're just going to push the button and make sure it turns blue so everybody on Zoom can hear you. Okay.
Please do introduce yourself and your address for the record. Sure thing. And we do have a 3-minute time in public comment. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Stacy McGarry and my husband Steve is here with me and, we've lived up here in Green Mountain Falls for about 20 years. We own 2.5 acre property on UPass Avenue and we built our house in 2005. We've currently been planning to put a tiny home on our property to use as a rental or eventually use it for our elderly parents to live in. The place where we are planning to put it is in a spot with plenty of room around it on every side. And we already have electrical and water hooked up, which is past inspection to the site. We have also had a septic system designed and received a permit from El Paso County Public Health. The excavator is waiting for the okay to start. Since the location will be in the floodplain, this is the main reason we want a tiny home as opposed to a home with a permanent foundation. The tiny home is on wheels and can be moved if need be. This makes perfect sense. You do not want to have to build the home 3 feet up and put in a permanent foundation. We want to do as little destruction as possible to this beautiful piece of property surrounded by aspen trees. Our case is an exception because of the amount of land that we have to put the tiny home on is unique to other areas in the town. And also the fact that we live in our main home on the property and will always be there to look out for and oversee this tiny home. We can put a skirt around the tiny home so that it looks like it has a foundation and it is much safer to know that being in the floodplain, it can be moved at any time if need be. We are asking that you will reconsider the current code that prohibits some types of ADUs and how RVs are defined. This code should be changed or amended so that we are allowed to move forward with our plan to put a tiny home on our property and it should not be considered an RV. This will be a permanent dwelling structure and will not move unless in the event of an emergency. Okay, so I'm basically just wanting to kind of confirm what we've been communicated with regarding what's been happening up until now. From what we heard from Ben and, saying that, the RV, okay, the ADU you originally proposed would be allowed in terms of size. And a tiny home with wheels removed is an allowed land use as an ADU. It said that the other thing is that this includes constructing the ADU on a permanent foundation or otherwise anchoring it. So we see all the different, things that we would have to meet, saying that it is gonna be, can be allowed as an ADU, I'm sorry, I'm trying to, it's not considered a tiny home, but a manufactured home is what, the way that it's being put. And then the last thing is just that we're really still trying to push for the tiny home. And that it should not be considered to be the same thing as an RV, where, I have a whole list I can give you guys, but the tiny home is designed for full-time living with a focus on durability and customization, while an RV is primarily intended for temporary mobile living and is built with lighter materials for easier travel, making it less suitable for long-term residency. Essentially, a tiny home is more like a small house, while an RV is a vehicle for travel and recreation. So, that's just our, argument tonight, that we're still really trying to push for the change of that definition of what that a tiny home is considered to be an RV.
Okay, thank you for your input.
Where did you say your property is?
10385 New Pass Avenue.
Is that, where is that located as you head east
Do
on?
you know
New
where
Pass?
the distillery is?
Yeah.
We're right next to that.
On the upper
There's a
side?
long split rail fence to the west.
Okay.
Yeah, and it goes.
And you're on the south side of the road.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's a driveway already with the gate.
I think, yeah,
Rail
I was
fencing.
looking for it actually. About this last time when I thought I located it. Sounds right.
Yeah, I mean, can I speak or we'll let her know? I'm Steve. Yeah, we're just right over there. The tiny home. I mean, it's on wheels, but that would be put on blocks and anchored down. The wheels would stay on that, and it's already gonna be off the ground around 3 feet. I mean, I'm in construction and it is the floodplain, but everybody in that whole area is in the floodplain. Everybody, and I know they didn't meet code back then because they were built and they didn't have the code, but we just can't see why we got all this land. Everybody around us has leach fields, septic tanks, everything in there, and we can't do anything with this property. And really, it is for our mother and father-in-law. We made Airbnb it, but the main reason why is because I want to put them there. They can't afford where they live now. So,
Is the property on the south side of the road, right? A lot of trees on it?
yeah, there's aspen,
There's a wagon, there's a wagon.
there's a
Yeah.
wagon, but you could say I already have
Would the,
200 amp power back there. It's off the road a ways.
would it even be visible from the road?
Very, in the wintertime, yeah, summertime, no, not as much. You know, I mean. It's just frustrating because, you know, we keep up on our property, we love the town and we take care of everything around us. We're out there all the time, you know, keeping up, and it just seems like this shouldn't be like this to us, but it is, so. All right, well, thank you.
We appreciate y'all's input and thank you. That is part of what we're going to be discussing. this
Okay,
evening.
can I?
I can take any materials and distribute those. Sure thing. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Do we have any more public input?
Do I have any public comment coming in from Zoom? I'm not seeing any more public input.
Bo, this is Ann. I thought that was a very good presentation and appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we leave? I mean.
Of course.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, guys. for your time.
Thank you for your time.
Reports? Do we have any reports from the commissioners?
No.
Any reports from the staff?
I have a question. This is Ann. We aren't making any decision about their particular property tonight, are we?
No, not tonight. That's not gonna go in front of us.
Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you.
Definitions and things will touch on what they brought up.
Yeah. Thank you.
Wonderful. Just one quick update for you all. I'm very pleased to introduce our new planning technician. She's here in the audience tonight. This is Kate Mojalewski. Yeah, so she is very brand new, started today. So let her get her feet under her. We're gonna start her off with being the face of Green Mountain Falls Planning Department, and as she builds skills and becomes familiar with our land use code, we'll get her into more complicated things. Outside of that, just wanted to really thank everybody for their participation in the work session last month. The results of that work session are being considered tonight, so thank you.
And Kate, how do we say your name again correctly? Because I know she said it right, but
Kate Mojalewski.
Mojalewski, okay. Thank you. And welcome.
Can I clarify what the, duties are for Kate and how this is all included? I'm a little confused.
So we're gonna begin having her field the planning applications as they come in and be that first point of contact for people. She'll also then, as we receive applications that are simpler minor site plans, she'll begin working on those.
Okay, get your plan, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, I do nothing. It wasn't, your name is not listed on the agenda and I don't see this, so.
It's a surprise.
What?
Surprise.
Okay.
She was able to make it tonight, so we wanted to introduce her to everyone.
Okay.
Okay, so along that lines, can you walk us through a little bit of the left-right limits for us versus her responsibility versus ours, just so we all understand how we interconnect?
Certainly, I think if you have questions as you're trying to interpret land use code applications or things that are within your packet, you can certainly email her. Please copy Bo and I and Baseline if you would like to. That helps us to make sure that the correct information is getting out there. The email address that she will be utilizing is planner@gmfco.us. We are working on getting that email set up, so it's not quite wildly active yet, but we'll be updating the website this week. And
So she or y'all be sitting on the email with her.
yes, we'll introduce her to everybody via email.
And will this reduce our need to lean so heavily on Baseline? Is that my understanding?
Ultimately, yes.
Once the on the job trainings.
Ultimately, yes, there's certainly still going to be more complicated applications that she's going to have to refer out. And then Bo, per our municipal code, is still responsible for getting your meeting agendas and minutes posted. So nothing changing there. a majority of what Kate will be doing for us to start off with is administrative approvals.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right, moving on to the next topic. Let's go to business.
We have public hearings. Oh, it's built in.
So first up on your business items is ordinance 24-04, the rezoning notice, and I would like to lean on Julie to introduce this and take questions from you.
Hi, good evening. Thanks, Bo, for having this available. I don't have a presentation. We have three kind of technical text amendment type items today, mostly legislative, nothing regarding a particular property tonight. So my apologies for the kind of order of the packet. I didn't really get it clarified with Bo, but each of the three items has this request for planning commission action that should be on top. I was meaning for you guys to kind of see that first. This is a new document that Becky and I discussed, kind of introducing to you guys. I use this in other communities and it helps summarize in 1 or 1.5 pages the item, and it includes a motion that you can just read straight from the text there, and it includes some information about when it's being heard, if there was a work session, if the attorney reviewed it, and if the approved documents need to be recorded at the county or not. So I hope this is a useful format for you guys, but we're definitely interested regarding this form. So as Becky mentioned, ordinance 2024-04 is an ordinance amending section 1251 and 1255 of the land use code regarding the notice process for legislative rezonings. We discussed this with the town attorney, and the background, as in the summary, is basically back in the end of 2022, the land use code was updated and the zoning districts were also amended, adjusted, renamed, consolidated. And so there's a new zoning map that's been being prepared to show these new zone districts and have it be aligned with the new zoning code. So that map is ready to be approved now. It's been completed.
Are we looking at the ADUs? Not
No,
that.
we're starting with business item A, which is about the rezoning notice.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay. Got it.
So, Bo, if you want to put it right,
Slides are out.
it would be page 11 of your packet. I don't
Yeah,
know
the
if
slides
that-
are out of order. I apologize for that. Give me 1 minute.
Okay, I
and
think
go to the
this
right
is
page.
it. This is it. Right here is good. Anyway, so we went to adopt the zoning map and we sent notice out for it to the newspaper, and then we realized that it would require also mailed and posted notifications. And we discussed this with the attorney and we said, well, this seems like a gigantic commitment with a lot of questions from the town to basically just adopt this map when the code has already been adopted. And so the town attorney suggested that we amend the code for this notice requirement just for a legislative rezoning. So in the code right now, there's just one type of rezoning. It's any property or any number of properties. If it gets rezoned from open space to R1, that's a rezoning. If you adopt a new zoning map, that's also considered a rezoning. So, however, if you rezone just one property, that requires mailed notices to surrounding properties and a posting on the property and a newspaper notification. All of that has to be 15 days before the public hearing. And for one property or two or five, you know, if they all get rezoned together for some reason, that's a reasonable notice process. But if you're adopting a new zoning map, which basically affects every single property in town, sending a mailed notice to every single property owner and requiring every single property owner to post a notice on their property in order to adopt the new map is burdensome and really not necessary. In addition, the town attorney indicated that by state statute, rezoning only requires newspaper publication. So he wrote this ordinance for your consideration that, so let me see if there are any questions before we go and look at the ordinance itself.
I have a question, Julie.
Yeah.
Well, if it's not required by statute, is that also for small properties? There's no requirement for that? The town can just do it all without posting? Even in those cases for neighbors?
The town could choose to do that, yes. Currently, the,
What?
so state,
Yeah.
go ahead.
My question would be, this is going to be a large parcel thing with the new zoning map, which nobody's really aware of yet. That just seems kind of peculiar to me. I know that it's burdensome, but is this considered a public hearing to approve not posting or letting everybody know? We would vote on that tonight only?
So tonight for this ordinance, 2024-04, you will be making a recommendation to the board. The board has ultimate authority to approve or deny this ordinance. And if they approve it, it needs to be published, and 30 days after publication, it would become effective.
And it only has to be put in the newspaper, right?
Well, the ordinance, it's a little confusing. The ordinance is changing the notification requirements, right? For a rezoning.
And so once they've approved the ordinance, then it's the law, right? So then that's
correct.
What they do. Okay.
Yes, once it gets approved, then in January, you could, the board, the town could adopt the zoning map with only a newspaper publication.
Well, that just seems kind of sneaking up on people to me, personally, but I'm sure other people have ideas. I don't need to keep talking.
So I wasn't here with you guys when you adopted the new land use code, but Becky, maybe you want to speak to that if people kind of already have had the opportunity to look at those zoning changes in the code.
Sure, I'm gonna let Mayor Dixon brief the crowd on this one.
Okay, so a while back, we adopted a new land use code. When we adopted that, it effectively rezoned the town. So anything new that's being done is actually following our new land use code zonings. We have not rezoned anything from like residential to mixed use or anything like that.
It's just, this is basically a legislative thing. We're just basically changing the label and the definition that's in the new land use code. So for example, something that was R1 10,000 before is now just low density residential. I think it's still an R1, but
So it's
So
not
it's just a
changing what
label.
it does, it's just changing necessarily what we call
The
it.
title, right, rather it used, so for example, it used to be public land and now it's open space.
and so what this does, it allows us to, with this code change, it allows us to basically just publish it in the paper, we have it on our website, and then from that point forward, your property's still basically R1. But it just basically changes the label, and we don't have to do the mailings. Now, for individual properties, which we will potentially have one coming up, that may need some rezoning. It may need to go from residential to mixed. That would still be posted, that we'd still have the mailings for that. We call this a legislative change in this ordinance that's in front of you tonight. Because it is basically just changing the labels.
Okay, so what would prevent somebody or some group in the future from using this to make larger changes? And right now, I understand we're just changing the title of what it, but it's still a residential property, it's still a commercial property, et cetera, et cetera. But what would, if we don't have that requirement for notification, a little bit more in-depth notification, in there, what would stop this town from in the future making larger changes that would impact everybody?
The ordinance, as I understand, is only for legislative changes.
Okay,
Correct.
that was what I was missing. Thank you.
And so if it's
What
not a
was-
what you call legislative change, like what we're doing when we adopted the new
Okay.
land use code changes, then it would still have to go through the same process. That's my understanding.
Okay.
If a property owner were to want to change the use of their property, they would still be required to do the hardier publications and
Right,
notifications.
understood on the individual side, I just wanted to make sure that we're not creating a slippery slope, but if it's only for legislative purposes, then that clarifies it, at least to me.
Yeah, I've got this too. You say notification, you just notify the properties around it or more than that?
If someone is changing their zone or desires to change zone, for example, there is a case coming there where we may change from residential to mixed use. That would have to get the mailing and the notification.
To people around it or everybody in town?
There's a
150 foot.
150 foot limit,
Okay.
So anyone within 150 foot would have to get the mailing.
Okay.
Could I ask another question? This is Ann. Where is this property that we're speaking of?
That is to be determined. That is something that may be coming in front of the board in the future.
Yeah, this
Is
was
it, we don't know?
No, it's not for consideration for tonight.
We don't have an active application currently.
But somebody wants this change, so
Yeah.
I don't quite understand.
Can
What-
you put up ordinance so she can see what we're doing?
Yeah, and
This is a general change.
and this is a, what they call a legislative change to support the land use code that is already now in effect. It's not for an individual rezoning of an individual piece of property.
So we don't know where it is. It's just a general idea, right?
This is basically for our whole town zoning map.
It's just clarifying some of the stuff in the land use code to make it easier for everyone when they're doing their applications and things like that.
Well, I don't like it personally, but that's just me.
So
Thank you.
maybe I can clarify it. Bo, can you scroll down to where it shows the table? Yeah, that's good. Right there is perfect. What Mayor Dixon was talking about, Anne, is the difference between a single property being rezoned,
Yeah, I get that.
which is something that may happen in the future. We don't have an application on that yet. We don't know where that is, right? And a legislative rezoning, which has to do with a code amendment.
I understand that, but why do? Well, I just don't. Who gets to decide the big rezoning? The trustees?
The trustees already did, because the zoning code, this text, which is the code, the book, has already been adopted.
So it's just the map?
It's just the map.
We haven't adopted the map.
Correct.
And everybody sees the map right now, right? Everybody.
Hey, Ann, can I try to simplify it? It's Lisa. So in our current land use code, when we change the whole zoning of the entire thing, in the land use code, it says that we have to mail a piece of notification to every one of the property owners, all 800, whatever it is, and put it in the newspaper and post it. We'd have to post on everyone's property, like all 800, I don't know how many parcels we have, but we'd have to put a posting on all of them. So that seems too arduous. So we're just trying to simplify it. Does this help? And then we're just gonna make it so that we're gonna publish it to notify that the entire zoning map is being changed, period. Has nothing to do with smaller properties.
Oh, I understand that, but I still, I know it's burdensome, but.
Well, we have to put a sign. You think we should put a sign in everyone's parcel in town?
I don't.
800 of them?
Well, I won't get to make the final decision anyway.
Well, I'm wondering if you think that's a good idea. I want to hear your opinion.
Yeah. It's just that zoning is a tricky thing. It started to put people where you want them. And that's just the way it developed historically. And sometimes it's not always for the best. We don't know.
Okay. Julie, I was waiting to ask my question really quickly. You mentioned, I clarified, you said that in the federal or the state clerk recorders, you use some term.
State statutes.
Yeah, state statute, thank you. That's more commonly within the state, publication is all that's required.
Correct.
Okay, thank you, which is what you're proposing here, that we go with the state statute. Wonderful, thank you.
Yeah, and so you can see this legislative rezoning has the check mark only for published. The existing zoning has a check mark for published, mailed, and posted. And so the existing zoning line will remain in the code. This line will just be added to differentiate between a regular zoning of a single property or multiple property, legislative rezoning that is, as the definition says below, incidental to or as part of a general revision to this code. So it can only, this situation can only occur during a code amendment. And a code amendment will be publicly, I don't know how. A code amendment, I think, has to be posted at town hall and published in the newspaper.
Okay.
Yeah, so go ahead.
I'm trying to mention multiple uses as a code. What is multiple use mean? What can you do on multiple use property? Or mixed use thing.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the question if it's directed to
I
me.
was wondering what the definition of a multiple use property is as opposed to private property.
It's a mixed use.
Mixed use.
And mixed use is mixed use, MX1 district, it's called MX1. MX1 district is intended to accommodate primarily commercial and industrial uses with limited residential uses at a neighborhood scale. And then if you go to the uses, permitted uses table, you'll see where you have R1, R2, MX1, and where it says has something under MX1, then that's what's allowed as a use
Okay.
in our current code.
So do we have any more comments or questions from the commissioners? No. All right, on the matter of, let's see if I can get this right. Ordinance 2024-04, the proposed amendment to section 1251. Do you vote yay, nay, or abstain?
What is the question?
There were mo-
Let's have a public hearing.
Not for the first one.
Okay, so can I
Not
just,
for 2404.
can I just make a couple of suggestions? So there's no public hearing for this item. The town attorney has advised that the public hearing will be at the board meeting. And before you vote, there should be a motion and a second. And whoever wants to make the motion can just read it straight from the request for planning commission action. It's on the screen right now.
To make a motion to approve ordinance 2024-04. And ordinance amending sections 1251 and 1255 of the Green Mountain Falls Municipal Code to establish a separate notice process for legislative rezonings.
I'll second that motion.
Second. Second.
Mike thirded it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays?
Nay. This is Ann.
Okay. The ayes have it. Moving on to the next one.
Okay, so our next item is about the ADUs. And this is ordinance 2024-03. This is a result of one of the items we discussed at the workshop on October 14th. And it did originally come to our attention because of the Magyary's application for their tiny home. We had determined that between the restriction of a tiny home, or a recreational vehicle and a manufactured home, that they couldn't really put anything on their property. So we discussed this with Planning Commission and we decided on a couple of items. One was to remove the restriction of a manufactured home from the definition of an ADU. And the other was a suggestion to adjust the restriction on the size of the ADU. So, Bo, if you want to scroll to the ordinance. Okay, so this is section. You scroll up a little bit so I can see the
Things that weren't allowed.
Can I see section 1 first? Perfect. Okay, so the section 1 is an amendment for section 12-33E1C. And it's there, Bill has it highlighted. The regular text is how, plus the crossed out portions is how the text reads now. And the italics is what's being added. So currently C says an accessory dwelling unit shall, although shall should be, it probably really says an accessory dwelling unit must not contain more than 1,000 square feet of gross floor area. And we discussed changing that to just be smaller than the the principal dwelling unit. So the new definition would say an accessory dwelling unit shall contain less gross square footage than the principal dwelling unit on the lot to which it is located. This is something that I wasn't 100% sure the Planning Commission had consensus on. It was something that was brought up as an idea. So we can discuss that if you would like. Do you want to take them one at a time?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna discuss that highlighted sentence that you put there?
Yes. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I couldn't be at the last work session, and I disagree. If you have a 500 square foot home and you have 199 or 4,099 square foot home, it's just gonna add another big house. I think there should be a limit to an accessory dwelling unit myself, rather than just randomly smaller than the one that's already there. Julie, do you know what the common size is?
So communities vary on this. Sometimes it's a percentage. A lot of times it's like this. It just says it has to be smaller. I think the reason that some communities say it just has to be smaller is because of the other regulations of the code that have to be met, setbacks, open space. And so sometimes just the size of your lot and the size of your existing home doesn't allow that. But you know, that's not 100% for sure. Like you could have a big lot with a big house with a really big ADU. That would be a possibility with this change.
Is it the percentage of the land that's available to use, or percentage of the home that's already there?
Generally, it's a percentage of the house that's already there. Like it can be 75% or 50% or, you know, something like that.
Why we want the house smaller than the other house? It seems to me relative to the size of the lot. If you got 3 acres, who cares how big a house you put on it? If you've got 12,000 square feet, it makes a big difference. So I'm not sure this is the right criteria. Seems like the size of the lot is the main criteria for adding another home to the property.
I agree with that. I think so too.
Well, okay, I could speak on something. I'm not sure you really want that either. Because, you know, keep in mind, this is an accessory function. It's an accessory use. And you're saying you're gonna have an accessory use that could be larger than your existing home.
Well, I mean, the one house is bigger, one house is smaller. I don't know that it makes a whole lot of difference. You want your in-laws to move in or your parents to move in or something like that. I don't know why we limit the size of the house.
Well, could you do a percentage of the property or smaller than the house? And then that addresses both of them. I think Commissioner Bonwell is correct that having some upper limit is good. Granted, most of us couldn't even dream of affording to do something like that, but we do want to put those protections in place.
Yeah, so can I introduce just one a point? In the definition below, the accessory dwelling unit by definition is already required to be subordinate. And so you have to have a primary structure on your lot before you can have an accessory structure. And the accessory structure always has to be subordinate. So we're just trying to decide how subordinate. What's that?
What does subordinate mean in this case? What is the definition? Because subordinate could be interpreted just as easily to mean that's not the one I live in, and I'm the one that pays the taxes.
And what is the reason why we don't want second house put on property to be any bigger than the first house? If I have 3 acres and 5 acres and I want to put a second house on it, why does anybody care whether it's bigger or smaller?
Well, for one thing, I don't know if we even have any 3 acre or 5 acre buildable lots here in town. If they are, they're probably open space.
Yeah,
But, you know, at least in my mind, this is just my opinion. If you're building something that's an accessory to an existing structure, to me, it ought to be, the whole intention is, it's not the main structure. It's something, to me, that means smaller, but that's just my opinion.
Also, if you're gonna have two big houses that are equal size, they need to be on separate lots.
Right.
So this is an accessory use to the main use, right? So an
So how-
accessory dwelling unit increases housing without having to divide the land.
Okay, so how do we clarify that? Because you're right. But I want to make sure that that's clear for us and everybody else that's trying to interpret this. That is not as knowledgeable about this as you are.
Yeah, so the accessory uses are listed in the use table. And definitions also an accessory use. The accessory dwelling unit is the definition is listed here, but I think in the code, there's also a definition of an accessory use.
why are we calling, I mean, it could be just building a second house on the same property, why are we calling it accessory use? When it might just be, I want to build a house for my parents. And I don't understand why we're limiting it to accessory use. So you're saying, can you build two houses on the same property? Well, it depends on how many properties and how many houses. It seems like the relationship between the property and the size of the houses is more important than calling them accessory apartments.
Typically, in those cases, the land would be be subdivided to where it would have a primary structure, a primary home on each piece of land. If you have that much land, that's the process.
Why is it necessary to have the property divided?
It's because in the R1 zone district, the use is one single family home, not as many as you can fit. You can have one single family home on one R1 zoned lot and one accessory dwelling. That's how the code is written.
So with C that we're discussing, what about if we did something that contains less square footage than the principal dwelling unit? To be no greater than 75% or something like that, but you know, that puts that end cap on that, hey, you can get close, but it's not gonna be the same size as the other house. And again, if there needs to be exceptions because they have a tiny, tiny little cabin like I live in, then maybe they have a room for it, but that's something they can apply separately.
Yeah, if I could address, Commissioner Fry's comment. Right now, under, R1 and R2, you could have attached dwelling, and it's allowed in either one, an attached dwelling in either one. You could have a duplex, and then you could have single family dwelling detached. In a case around here, if someone wanted to, say, build two houses pretty much next to each other, which most lots in town would have to be that way.
It's not gonna happen very often. It's small lots.
You could apply for a duplex type of a thing under our existing code without having to call it an accessory. The accessory is meant to enable these small dwellings that are kind of separate from the main dwelling.
Like a mother-in-law.
Kind of,
Separate dwelling, yeah.
you know, the state went through a whole thing on ADUs and basically negated a lot of local requirements if you're within a metropolitan transit line. But the whole intention of that was to allow for these smaller dwellings to be placed on lots that could support them.
If I could say something, this is Anne, just a historically thing. That used to be very common 100 years ago in Green Mountain Falls. For instance, our property and my cousin's properties have a main house, which is not real big. And then they had another one. Our extra one is named Grumble Nut, and it was much smaller, and that's where all the boys had to sleep. You know, and they just had canvas curtains. It wasn't as fancy or something, but that was an accessory dwelling. And when we and it had a little stove in it, they could cook and so on. So I'm guessing it's that type of thing that we're modernly trying to kind of recapture in a sensible way. So thank you.
R1 is also what we call by definition now low density. So we don't really say, we kind of broke it down by low and high density. We didn't really put in hard and fast numbers into it.
Any more discussion on this point? Then I'm gonna make a motion that we accept.
Okay, wait,
Art.
1 second. So we still have to discuss the section 2, which is the accessory dwelling unit definition. And our suggestion, and this is to allow.
I thought we were doing these step by step. Are we not?
So there are two parts to this ordinance. And if we want to change section 1, which is item C there, we can. But I'd also like to talk about the manufactured home being struck from the definition. If that seems favorable to you. This is the main reason why this ordinance is before you guys, and what I believe I heard at the workshop that everybody was in agreement on. Currently, a recreational vehicle is prohibited and a manufactured home is prohibited. So the only type of accessory dwelling unit that's allowed is one that's constructed, you know, they call them stick built, you know, it's got a foundation, it has walls built from scratch, you know, it's not built off site. And a lot of accessory dwelling units these days are built off site. And so we thought it would be reasonable to remove that restriction. It would allow the Magyaris to have their tiny home on their lot. They still would have to meet the floodplain regulations. That's a separate topic. But yeah, so this is there's the size of the ADU, and then there's the definition. And if you want to remove manufactured home to allow certain smaller manufactured homes as ADUs, otherwise it's going to be really expensive, I think, for most people to be able to establish an ADU on their home, on their lots.
Yeah, I remember discussing that. I think that's a good idea.
So to further that, do we need to put, or to include, or should we consider including tiny home in here as well?
You just removed it.
So this one particularly is in general, because those are becoming more prevalent.
Take it out.
But I think what you're saying about it being prohibited to do the stick built for an ADU.
Is that question for me? I couldn't quite hear.
Should we consider adding tiny home as one of, instead of manufactured home, add tiny home as one of the many listed options?
I discussed that with the attorney, and if we should add tiny home and a definition for tiny home, and he didn't think that it was necessary.
So what, Julie, all you're doing is striking out the prohibition of a manufactured home. Is that correct?
Correct.
Just take one thing out.
Correct.
Okay.
So moving forward, if you want to amend this ordinance or recommend approving it with some kind of change, that's totally reasonable, and we can have the attorney rewrite this ordinance before we send it to the board. If you would like to approve it with a change, that's one thing you can do. You can also just recommend against it. And then I guess we would just take it with your negative recommendation to the board and see what they say.
I do have a question. On the previous item, we're gonna have to define gross square footage. Because it's not defined anywhere yet.
What
Okay.
was it?
Gross square footage.
Yeah. It says,
I can speak with the attorney about that. He's pretty good about getting everything included in the definitions. I don't know if he felt like that was a universally defined term, but
yeah, if it's a universally defined term, it's not an issue. I just noticed that it's a gross square footage, and I went to look at the back and I didn't see anything for that definition. I was just curious.
Since this is not telling you what you can use, it tells you what you can't use. Can't use recreational vehicles and so forth. Then you could use a manufactured home, tiny home, or stick-built home, right? Okay.
That you can use a manufactured home, right? Mhm. I think that's good.
Any other questions on this section, these two sections? Do we have any public comments?
Yeah.
We should open the hearing, call the
Okay.
time, yeah.
It is now
7:28.
7:28. We are opening for a public hearing. On our discussion on ordinance 2024-03.
Do we have any comments from the public? Here in person or on Zoom? Seeing nothing coming in?
Any other documents or physical items of evidence? Then we'll
Do we vote or what?
waiting for a motion.
Julie, would we vote on this? Is this a voting situation?
This is something that we would like for the planning commission to recommend to the board, whatever the recommendation may be. You could approve it as is, recommend approval as is. You could recommend approval with a change. You could recommend denial.
Brandy, could I make a motion?
Let's close the public hearing first.
You're not ready yet?
We're gonna close the public hearing and then
Oh,
we'll
that was-
discuss it amongst ourselves. I'm gonna
Sorry.
close the Public hearing right now. It is 7:30.
This looks fine, I'll make the motion, we recommend this.
I want to discuss whether I think we should put a limit. We're on section 1. About containing less, just not, I would like to specify like it must contain 75% less gross, that's like a double rating, but yeah, less than 75% of the main. You just state that somehow better.
Yeah, I think it would state an accessory dwelling unit shall not be larger than 75%
Thank you.
of the
Yes.
original of the principal dwelling unit. Yeah.
Yes, that's well put. Thank you.
Do we want to relate that at all with the size of the lot? Or are we just gonna take that into consideration when we bring the thing?
What if their principal house is really little? They might only have a shed.
Well, if they got a big house and they want a big addition and it's a little lot,
Then they
we
can
might
apply
want to
for a
say,
variance
Yeah.
exception.
you're gonna have to reduce the size of your accessory. But if it's not, it's pretty good size lot, then I don't know that we need to care, it's 75 or 80.
I don't
This
think,
is a general recommendation, and there'll be lots of special cases, because every case is special, but I still vote for 75% less.
I would like to see some kind of upper limit cap as well, so 75% is comfortable. If somebody comes back with a different recommendation, we can discuss that. And Commissioner Esch, what is your opinion?
yeah, I'm sorry, I'm having a little trouble understanding what you're saying.
So we're looking at 1C and one.
Yeah, no, I understand. Are we gonna vote on what their recommendation is first? And then either that goes or not, and then you do a next one?
So what we're recommending is that we change the contain less gross square footage to, it needs to be 75% smaller. There's better verbiage that Julie used. I'm sorry, Julie, I don't have that.
That's
creative memory.
okay. Shall not
Basically,
be larger than 75%. And let me just introduce one thing. You could just ask for this portion to be removed from the ordinance and just have the ordinance be about the manufactured home. If you like the way the code is right now, that the maximum size is 1,000 square feet, then
that's it.
we could just take this section 1 off of this ordinance. And
I think
A good idea.
having some size limit in there is useful, so the. Yeah,
We could say an accessory dwelling unit shall contain no more than 75% of the square footage of the principal.
yeah, that's what
That's what we're
she's saying. We're all on the same page.
I was just like,
Let's see that.
I don't like it, I was just giving you one.
Oh. Gotcha.
I would just take out, I would do what Julie suggested, just take that part out and just do the manufactured thing. That seems to be the most important part.
That's fine with me too. We could just remove the strike of 1,000 feet and leave it in there. Don't change it.
I think that's perfectly reasonable. So
Agree with anything I'm saying, Commissioner Bride. This is getting. This is the end of the day.
Okay, so it seems like we're at a little bit of an impasse right now on this one, so how do we move forward from this? Because it seems like no, that's, we value your input, absolutely.
Well, I heard you kind of say 80% over there. So could we just do 75? Can you agree with 5%? Let's run that. 75.
Okay. So do
I
we
don't-
have a motion, maybe?
Could I
accept
just try,
the
could I try to make a motion? Maybe this isn't what you're after, because I am having a little trouble following. But I would make a motion to permit, to revise it so that manufactured homes are permitted. That seems to be the biggest question right now. And maybe just leave out the other part, like Julie said, and leave it at 1,000 feet as it is in the, not 1,000 feet,
1,000 square feet.
square feet. And then the trustees could change it if they want to, too, of course.
I don't think that keep that 1,000 square feet in, that's very small, that's not a very big.
Okay, so we have a motion, do we have a second? On
Just past
motion?
manufactured home.
No? Okay. Do one of y'all want to restate?
I would like to restate the motion. Section 1 of ordinance 2024-03. It should state an accessory dwelling unit shall not contain more than 75% the square footage of the principal dwelling unit on the lot to which it is located. How's that, Jim? Did I get close?
Yes.
And strike, and strike, right. Leave the strike in place, and in section 2, leave the strike in place to remove manufactured home or.
Okay, moved and seconded.
Okay, I would like to clarify something for Commissioner Esch. Commissioner Esch, did you hear your motion did not get a second?
I did, but they're still gonna allow the manufactured home itself, right?
Yes.
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 That's all I was concerned. about. You know,
Okay.
allowing that. So yeah, I'll vote yes on what you want.
Okay, all in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. Move on to the next one.
Great. So just so you know, I'll work with the attorney to get that amended. Actually, I probably don't. I'll amend it and send it to him for his review, but and we'll get that updated and for the board, which they're meeting on this next week.
Yeah.
And the previous item also. So that brings us to the last item under last item I have under business, number C, letter C. And this is in regards to the adoption of the official zoning map, which we discussed previously. And this is a request for a motion to continue, to open the public hearing and to continue it to January 14th. As I mentioned before, when we thought that we could adopt the zoning map as soon as it was ready, before we realized we would have to send, notices to every property in town and posting as well. We sent the notice to the newspaper. So this has already been published that this public hearing to adopt the zoning map was going to be opened tonight at this meeting. So since that was already published, my recommendation is to open the public hearing and then continue it until January 14th. If the board approves the legislative zoning ordinance that we talked about on the first item of this agenda next week, then we have it published. It becomes effective 30 days, and then we can adopt the zoning map in January without having to do the mailings and the postings.
When are we gonna see the new one?
What's that?
You say, when are we gonna see the new zoning map?
So the new zoning map will be presented in January when we bring that to you guys for consideration and recommendation to the board.
Julie, sorry to interrupt. I'm wondering if there's any harm of going ahead and popping that up onto our website so that the public has an opportunity to view the proposed changes.
Yeah,
I
that
think
was
that's
gonna be my-
perfectly reasonable. Yeah.
That was gonna be my suggestion. Without having the zoning map available for review, it doesn't make any sense to open up a public hearing.
Yeah, we can go ahead and get that onto the website tomorrow.
That's a good idea.
So it does exist. huh?
Yeah, it does. I'm working hard on it.
You did have it available at town hall if anybody had come in to view it. I suspect that nobody
Yes, definitely.
did, though, Becky. Did you have
Nobody's coming, but usually, typically we put those things up onto the website just to make them easier for public inspection.
any? Okay, perfect.
The only challenge I'm gonna say that we might have with that is if Bo runs into any hiccups, getting it through the ADA reader. If that ends up being the case, we can certainly email it out to you tomorrow at the very least. Please note, it is a draft until it has been adopted.
Can I make a suggestion? We have those big prints. Let's get a big print and let's put it on an easel or something up here for inspection. In
Sweet.
case and that way, if we do run into the ADA issues, then we can have it. I mean, that's.
An alternative posting place.
Yeah, we- yeah,
Ah,
That makes sense.
Is it possible to put it down at the post office? Like, poster thing they've done.
Good, great thinking.
sure.
There are a lot of people going to the post office every day.
Yeah.
Bo, be sure to mark it as draft if you post it anywhere,
Good idea.
including the website.
Sure thing.
Okay, so the purpose is just so that we don't have to send out the public mailings, and this is a way that we are opening it up for everybody to look at and consider between now and January's meeting, right?
We wouldn't ordinarily open the public hearing this early. We're doing it because we sent the notice to the newspaper as that we needed to amend the code in order to remove the requirement to send the mailed and posted notices.
Okay.
Does that
And
make
so
sense?
they go hand in hand. Because we sent the notice to the newspaper, now we have to do this essentially.
We could have just canceled this, but the attorney's recommendation was to acknowledge that we had posted for this meeting and just open it and then continue it to January when it was ready to take action.
And with all the travel over holiday season, I think that makes perfect sense given the timing of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And opening the public hearing for this ordinance at 7:42. Do we have a motion to leave it open for consideration until June?
I move to close the public hearing and continue it. Is that what you wanted? Not yet?
Make a move.
I can make a motion to continue the public hearing regarding the adoption of the official zone plan until January 14, 2025.
Second.
Okay. Do we have consensus? Okay. It's been motioned, everybody? Yes, let's vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the ayes have it. We're gonna leave this public hearing open. Do we have any other items to discuss?
I think there's
60.
one more item for Bo. I'm gonna log off. Thank you all so very much for getting through
Thank
this
you.
challenging packet. Let me know if you have any comments on the materials or the presentation. We can work to
Thank you so
improve.
much for all your
Help you out.
patience with us, Julie. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. You guys have a good evening.
You too.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Good night.
It's Julie.
Okay, it's time to move on to our budget prioritization scorecards. All right, I have 4 from Commissioner Fry, Commissioner Barwell, myself, and Commissioner Esch. So, oh my God, y'all are making me do math. Stand. I'm gonna have to take off my boots. Forward. I'm gonna need help with this. Okay, so. Yeah. No consensus. Okay. So.
Yeah.
The tabulation device?
Oh, that would be lovely. Thank you.
Excel version 1.0.
Thank you.
Just add them up. Low numbers.
Don't need to call it math. All right. So that was
It's my election clerk right there.
Yeah, that election probably helped. Oh, but will you go tabulate?
Oh, so like item number one, how many did you count?
What, like add the numbers up?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. So, right.
Oh, I see.
So item number one, how many prioritized it as number one? Number two, how many it was number one? Maybe that works. Maybe that doesn't work. I gotta do minutes for this one.
What is that?
It better be on there.
What is the purpose of this as a prioritization budget?
yes. So during our budget meeting, was it last month? We went in front of each section or commission and committee, went in front of the board and gave our recommendation of how we would like to prioritize the items that the projects that we are moving forward. I did a quick tabulation based off of the information I already had and that we'd already discussed. And then what the board of trustees came back and asked is that each committee or commission come back and after discussion amongst ourselves, verify what we think those priorities should be.
Yeah, so basically the board was about ready to launch into a prioritization scheme. And the board kind of came back and said, hey, we'd kind of like to know what the priorities are from the committees.
And so priorities are,
For
they may
what you-
not all get included, so the top ones will get included.
Well, just whatever you think is the thing that's needed the most, all the way down to the thing that.
If we run out of money, then the
Yeah.
one on the bottom is the one that's gonna get the least.
Yeah. If you
Not
run- if
that
we
the
run out of
one-
money,
not
the
that's
ones
gonna
on the
be-
bottom, obviously.
Okay.
drop off.
Yeah, so our number one priority is going to be funding to support department and procedural development, and that's primarily administrative. Since we don't actually have many projects of our own.
Number two, we're split on everything else.
Yeah, and then number two is split between funding for the comp plan and land use code updates, and then also strategies to offset the town expenses.
Okay. So that was all about.
It's a tie.
On the number two, yes. I would suggest our number one's what it is. I would suggest as a tiebreaker, that probably our focus needs to be continuing to update the land use code and comprehensive plan. With number three as the strategies to offset town expenses. Does that sound amenable to everyone?
Why don't we just go with one? If we all agreed.
We will.
Okay.
You're gonna get them all. All right. So that ends our business. Do we have any correspondence? All right, let's move on to the next topic. Do we have any discussion items?
I do have a discussion item from Mayor Dixon.
Yeah, you may want to kind of keep a watch on the board agendas. The CSU parcel is potentially back on the table. They did come back with a revocable license. And it's back to like the $10 to be able to use it for, you'd be able to use a parcel for years. It's a parcel that is, it's kind of, as you're coming in, just right after El Paso Avenue. It's like the second block coming in from that the CSU owns. It's potentially back on the table. How it may affect you is if the board does go through with it, we would have to have it rezoned.
Okay. Thank you for the heads up on
I do have one other item that you all might want to discuss. Commissioner Blase emailed me and wanted to add an agenda item for your next agenda that would deal with code enforcement. And you know, who to direct to that and have that discussion. So
Somebody gonna run around and see if somebody's working on a project that they haven't got permit holders and
I think it's that kind of a thing, yeah.
these public works guys are all in town quite often, they might be able to spot something like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind discussing it next.
Yeah, that was a request from a commissioner, so if you guys are okay with that, I can add that to the next agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a suggestion too, if you don't mind. I don't know how this would work out, but I would love to see some kind of emailing or something for everybody that would sign up in the town for emergencies to quickly know what's going on. I know that there are certain lists. The mayor has a wonderful list. If we could, I don't know if we have to ask people's permission to let to be on it or what, but it seems like a needed, you know, just what emergencies especially, you know, this is important. You need to know this.
Commissioner Esch, this is Becky. I do have a little bit of direction for that, and so that we're not getting multiple streams of information or inaccurate information out there. The fire department and the Office of Emergency Management really likes for everybody to sign up for peak alerts. We have had a link go out on the Facebook page. It's also on the town's website, and we can do a push. We need something new for the banner anyways, so.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. No, I agree with that, but I meant just even, not just emergencies, but well, town business, you know, this is coming up or something. I don't know. It just seems like we still aren't communicating with each other just like I would love to be able to, you know. Maybe we never can. And then, but I would also like to mention that this morning I Zoomed in. I have signed up to attend in Zoom with a lot of the water quality things that are going on with the state. And so I would also like to ask, because we're all concerned about Regulation 43 with the wastewater problem that is possibly looming, if our attorney would find out if El Paso County already has a regulation about changing title, because I'm getting all kinds of questions and I'm not qualified to let people know what they should do. So I feel like it might be our duty to have a legal opinion, or at least a real, you know, what we can do as a town, that we owe it to our citizens.
Sorry, we can certainly research that for you, Ann.
Would you mind doing that? Because it's really confusing. And they're changing other things. Another regulation in February. The state is on the move, and then some counties have already moved. So I think I'd love for our lawyer to give us what we're up against. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. I am going to adjourn this meeting. It is 7:55.
Thank you.
Good job, you guys.
Thanks, everybody.